Some breaking news right now. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein has taken his own life while he was behind bars here in New York City. Epstein was facing trafficking charges.
Next to the new questions around the investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein, the accused trafficker stunning the world, taking his own life in a Manhattan jail cell. The official autopsy results just announced by the medical examiner and what his legal team is vowing to.
We've all seen the headlines, the courtroom sketches, the grainy photos of private islands and powerful men who swore they knew nothing. But what happens when the one person who could unravel it all, the heiress, the icon, the woman who once laughed off the whispers, suddenly stops laughing? That's the question burning through Hollywood, Washington, and every PR war room tonight, because insiders are telling us Paris Hilton isn't just talking to the FBI. She's negotiating. And the terms of that deal? They could rewrite the Epstein playbook entirely.
The Justice Department has finally released some of the highly anticipated Epstein files. More than 300,000 pages of documents related to the late convicted offender were made public today. They include photos, flight logs, grand jury testimony, and a lot of heavy redacted.
It started with a single line in a 2020 docuseries. Music composer Christopher Mason claiming Ghislaine Maxwell had eyed a young Paris Hilton at a party, calling her perfect for Jeffrey Epstein. Hilton dismissed it at the time with a shrug and a quip about being good clickbait. But that was before the FBI's latest push, before the December 2025 dump of Epstein files, before the 550 pages of blacked-out documents that left Congress screaming about compliance and survivors demanding answers. Now, sources familiar with the investigation say Hilton's legal team has been in quiet but intense discussions with federal prosecutors for weeks. The timing isn't random. It's strategic, and it's sending a very clear message to the others in Epstein's orbit. The game just changed. Let's rewind to September 2000, because that's where this gets interesting. Hilton was photographed at the Ann and John fashion show in New York, flanked by Ghislaine Maxwell and a certain future president who'd later call the Epstein saga a Democrat hoax. Back then, Epstein was still a decade away from his first guilty plea, and Hilton was just another young face in the scene. But Mason's claim that Maxwell had specifically targeted her hints at a pattern. Epstein's network didn't just happen, it was curated. And if Hilton was on the list, even briefly, what does that say about who else was being scouted, groomed, or silenced? Fast forward to 2025, and the question isn't just about what Hilton remembers. It's about what she's willing to trade to make sure her name stays out of the indictments.
Oh, but we have a congressional act now to requiring the release, but they're going to say, you know what?
Subject to
Tom
redaction.
Hanks, it's unfair that he was mentioned
the
because he
law
was eating
says
Skittles.
subject to redaction.
Subject
to redaction.
And we all know what that means. That's to protect.
That's why I'm saying you will never be satisfied with what's released.
The FBI's interest in Hilton isn't just about old parties or secondhand stories. It's about the gaps. The periods between 2000 and 2006, when Epstein's first criminal investigation began, are a black hole of unanswered questions. We know from the newly unsealed files that survivors like Maria Farmer had already filed complaints by 1996, complaints the FBI allegedly ignored. We know Epstein's 2008 plea deal let him walk with just 13 months, despite evidence of a trafficking operation spanning years. And we know that in the decades since, powerful names have fought tooth and nail to keep their connections buried. So when Hilton's team starts talking cooperation, the subtext is impossible to miss. She's not the only one who knows things. Now, let's talk about the panic, because while Hilton's camp stays silent, the rest of Epstein's former circle is scrambling.
As we've seen dozens of new photos we haven't seen before of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with very high-profile people, celebrities, people like Mick Jagger and Michael Jackson, like you showed, also like British royalty and actors. All of that we sort of knew was happening. I want to highlight specifically two for the public interest, and that is President Clinton and President.
Lawyers for at least three high-profile figures, two in entertainment, one in politics, have reportedly reached out to the Department of Justice in the past 48 hours, according to a source with ties to the legal teams. Their questions? What does Hilton have? How far back is she going? And who else is talking? The answers could be catastrophic. Remember, this isn't just about Epstein's island or his infamous black book. It's about the system, the way money, influence, and NDAS kept this story contained for decades. And if Hilton is cutting a deal, it means that system is cracking. The documents released this month only deepen the mystery. Among the thousands of pages, we saw photos of Epstein with Clinton, with Trump, with celebrities who've spent years insisting they were just acquaintances. We saw the birthday book with its cryptic notes, the dentist's chair on Little Saint, James, the Lolita references scrawled on a woman's body like some sick literary joke. But the most damning files, the ones that could tie it all together, those are still missing. Over 500 pages entirely blacked out. A grand jury transcript from New York, sealed. And now, Hilton's sudden cooperation suggests there's more, much more, still hidden. The question is no longer if the other shoe will drop, it's who it lands on. Consider the math. Epstein's operation didn't run on charm alone. It ran on leverage, on favors, on the kind of quiet understandings that keep powerful men silent. If Hilton is talking, she's not just naming names. She's describing mechanisms, how the introductions worked, Who vouched for whom? Where the lines between socializing and complicity got blurred.
This just broke moments ago. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released photos from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. We're getting dribs and drabs of this, and we had some pictures already, and here's some. There are some that show Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Steve Bannon, Bill Gates, and others. None of the released images depicts any misconduct. None is believed to depict underage girls. It was not immediately clear when or where they were.
And in a world where Trump once allegedly told Epstein, "You're that dog that hasn't barked," the barking has now begun. The president's own emails, released by House Democrats last November, suggest he knew more than he's admitted. Of course he knew about the girls. Epstein wrote to Ghislaine Maxwell in 2011. He has never once been mentioned. Until now. But here's where it gets even messier. Hilton's potential testimony isn't just about the past, it's about the present. The Epstein Files Transparency Act, signed into law last month, was supposed to force full disclosure by December 19th. Yet the Justice Department missed the due date, releasing only a fraction of the files, heavily redacted with entire sections wiped clean. Democrats are crying foul. Republicans are accusing the administration of a cover-up. And in the middle of it all, Hilton's lawyers are negotiating. Coincidence? Or is someone making sure the right names stay buried while the wrong ones take the fall? The other celebrities aren't waiting to find out. Kevin Spacey, who's been vocal about wanting the files released to clear his name, suddenly went quiet after the first batch dropped. Chris Tucker, photographed with Maxwell on an airport tarmac, scrubbed his social media of old party pics. Even Bill Clinton's team, who've long insisted he knew nothing, are reportedly prepping a new statement. The pattern is clear. When the walls start closing in, the stories start shifting.
Spoiler alert, season 2 is on the way, so in the end, he obviously didn't himself. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
And Hilton's move? That's the biggest shift of all. Now, let's talk about the why. Why would Paris Hilton, someone who spent 2 decades crafting an image of untouchable glamour, risk dragging herself into this? The answer might lie in the one thing Epstein's victims have been saying for years. This was never just about him. The network was the point. The protection, the silence, the way money and power could make even the most unthinkable behavior disappear. If Hilton's legal team is pushing for immunity, it's because what she knows isn't just damaging, it's explosive. And if the FBI is listening, that means they think she can deliver?
That the Bureau of Prisons gets to decide. The Bureau of Prisons is run independently from the FBI, from the U.S. Attorney's Office, from the judiciary, and who knows where the person's going to go. That's just how it happens. Right. So for Ghislaine Maxwell to have been transferred to actually a prison that has very, very minimal security and is just not fit for someone who's been convicted of horrible crimes against.
The final piece of this puzzle? The timing. The files were supposed to be fully released by now. The public was promised transparency. Survivors were promised justice. Instead, we got redactions, delays, and a president who flip-flopped from calling the whole thing a hoax to suddenly demanding Republicans vote to release the files. And now, Hilton. The one name that could bridge the gap between the old rumors and the new investigations. Between the parties at Mar-a-Lago and the flights to Little St. James. Between the photos we've seen and the ones we haven't. So where does this leave us? With a bombshell hanging in the air and one undeniable truth. Paris Hilton didn't just walk into an FBI office for fun. She walked in because the alternative, being named in the next indictment, was worse. And if she's talking, others will have to. The question is no longer if the Epstein case will claim more names. It's how many and how high. The files are coming. The deals are being cut. And the people who thought they were safe? They're about to learn just how wrong they were. Because when the walls come down, they don't come down quietly. And this time, the world is watching. The moment Paris Hilton's name surfaced in connection with the FBI, the real domino effect began. Not with her, but with the others.
It's layers upon layers. It's those Russian nesting dolls, and you open it, and there's another one in there, and you open it, there's another one in there.
Corruptions at all time. Bro, the Epstein files.
I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax. And then all of a sudden, he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man.
He wants an investigation now.
Because if there's one thing the Epstein saga has taught us, it's that no one operates in a vacuum. And when the heiress to $1 billion empire starts talking, the people who once treated her as a pawn suddenly realize she might hold the keys to their undoing. Take that infamous 2000 photo, the one with Hilton, Ghislaine Maxwell, and Donald Trump at the Ann and John fashion show. For years, it was just another snapshot of high society mingling, the kind of image that gets buried under layers of PR spin and strategic silence. But now it's a liability, and not just for Trump. Let's follow the thread. We know from the newly released files that Epstein's operation wasn't just about private encounters. It was about documentation, flight logs, guest lists, even that chilling birthday book with its cryptic notes and sketches. If Hilton was ever on those logs, or if she witnessed who else was, her testimony could force the unsealing of records that powerful figures have fought for decades to keep hidden. And that's where the panic sets in. Because while the public fixates on the names we already know, Clinton, Trump, the long list of celebrities caught in Epstein's orbit, the real fear isn't about who's already been exposed. It's about who hasn't. Yet. Consider the timing. Just last month, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released emails suggesting Trump knew far more than he's admitted. Of course he knew about the girls, Epstein wrote to Maxwell in 2011, a line that's haunted the former president ever since.
The news is breaking right now from the New York Times on Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. They think they've got him this time. They've really got him this time. Here are some highlights. Hold on a second. My team's sending me the name of the article. It's Don's Best Friend: How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. And left-wing X is going nuts over what's in this.
But Trump isn't the only one sweating. Bill Clinton's team has spent years insisting he was merely a passenger on Epstein's plane, a casual acquaintance with no knowledge of wrongdoing. Yet the photos tell a different story. Clinton laughing in a hot tub. Clinton posed with Maxwell. Clinton in settings that now look far more damning in hindsight. If Hilton can place him in conversations, at gatherings, or worse, in moments where the line between socializing and complicity blurs, the political fallout could be seismic, and Clinton isn't even the most vulnerable. Then there's the entertainment world, where the stakes are just as high, but the silence is deafening. Kevin Spacey, who publicly demanded the files be released to clear his name, has gone eerily quiet since the first batch dropped. Chris Tucker, once a fixture in Epstein's circle, has scrubbed his social media of old party photos. Woody Allen, whose name surfaced in the contact books, has yet to address the new documents. And let's not forget the lesser-known but equally powerful figures, the producers, the managers, the industry fixers who moved in Epstein's shadows. These are the people who don't have armies of lawyers or PR teams. These are the people who know that if Hilton starts naming names, theirs could be next.
Her, doesn't it? She probably wants to get out early. So I think that we have more digging to do. I think the DOJ transparency effort here is the right thing. But the reason it's on a Friday, Will, is I think there are no smoking guns. There's other places we have to look.
Well, Buck, you appropriately...
But here's where it gets even more interesting. The FBI isn't just after Hilton for what she saw. They're after her for what she heard. Because Epstein's world wasn't just about actions. It was about conversations. The kind that happened in private jets, at after-parties, in the kind of hushed tones that only come when powerful people think no one's listening. And if Hilton was ever in those rooms, even briefly, she might have picked up on the things that never made it into the files. The offhand comments, the jokes that weren't funny, the way certain names came up in certain contexts. That's the kind of testimony that doesn't just add to a case. It builds one. And let's talk about the FBI's strategy, because this isn't just about Hilton. It's about pressure. By bringing her in, they're sending a message to everyone else in Epstein's circle. We're coming, and we've got leverage. The question is, who flips next? Because make no mistake, this is how these cases unravel. One cooperation deal leads to another, and another, until the entire structure collapses under the weight of its own secrets. We've seen it before, in other scandals, other investigations. The first domino is always the hardest to push. But once it falls, the rest come crashing down. Now, let's connect this to the bigger picture, the fight over the Epstein files. The Justice Department was supposed to release everything by December 19th. Instead, we got heavily redacted documents, entire pages blacked out, and a promise of rolling disclosures that feels an awful lot like stalling. Democrats are furious. Survivors are demanding answers. And in the middle of it all, Hilton's cooperation suggests there's a reason the powers that be are so desperate to control the narrative. Because if the files are as explosive as we think they are, then every delay, every redaction, every legal maneuver is about one thing: buying time. And time is running out. The more names that surface, the harder it becomes to keep the lid on. Take the grand jury transcripts, for example. 119 pages completely blacked out. Why? What's in there that's so dangerous it can't see the light of day? Or the photos from Epstein's Island, the ones that show the dentist's chair, the Lolita references, the faces of people who've spent years pretending they were never there. If Hilton's testimony can tie those images to specific events, specific conversations, specific crimes, then the redactions won't just look like censorship, they'll look like complicity. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of all this is the realization that Epstein's network wasn't just a collection of individuals. It was a system.
Again, the big picture is we don't normally look in prosecutors' files if there's not a trial. You know, we kind of let the evidence play out after an indictment. We see what happens at a trial. Here we've got this kind of bizarro world, I think maybe fueled by special counsels where they write reports, where everyone feels like we're entitled, because we care so much about Jeffrey Epstein, to look at all the evidence and find out if there's other names. Well,
a system designed to protect itself. And systems like that don't go down without a fight. We've already seen the tactics, the smokescreens, the misdirections, the sudden reversals. Trump calling the files a hoax, then demanding their release. Clinton's team insisting he knew nothing, while photos tell a different story. The way certain names, like Spacey's, like Allen's, seem to vanish from the conversation the moment the heat turns up. This is how power preserves itself, by controlling the narrative, by making sure the right people stay silent. Yet here we are, with Paris Hilton, of all people, threatening to blow that system wide open. And if she does, the consequences won't be limited to the usual suspects. Because Epstein's reach extended far beyond the names we know. It touched politicians, yes, and celebrities, and business tycoons. But it also touched the people who enabled them. The lawyers who wrote the NDAS. The assistants who booked the flights. The friends who looked the other way. The system didn't just protect Epstein. It protected everyone who benefited from his world. And that's a lot of people. So where does this leave us? With a story that's far from over. With files that are still being fought over, still being redacted, still being hidden. With a cast of characters who thought they were safe, only to realize the ground beneath them is shifting. And with one undeniable truth. When the walls start closing in, the rats don't just scurry. They turn on each other. The question is, who's next? Who's the next name to surface? The next deal to be cut? The next secret to spill into the open? Because if Paris Hilton's cooperation teaches us anything, it's that no one is truly untouchable. And that, dear viewer, is where we leave you, with the knowledge that this scandal is bigger than one heiress, one financier, or even one president. It's about a web of power that's finally starting to unravel. So tell us in the comments, who do you think is sweating the most right now? And remember, when the truth comes out, it's never pretty, but it's always worth the wait. Stay sharp, stay curious, and as always, keep watching. Because this is only the beginning.